The definition of an X-ray is an attack on pieces that are not adequately defended. We're going to take a look at three different examples here. Let's start off with this one, and it's white to move. If you'd like, hit pause. Now, when you look at this picture a little more closely, we'll notice that black's rook has one defender there, and that defender happens to be the bishop. Now, the bishop itself actually has two defenders, and those are those two pieces right there. Now, what white would like to do is white would like to use an attack with its bishop all the way to the rook on the A8 square, but it can't do that because black's bishop is well defended and blocking white from doing that. However, if we look more closely, we'll notice that the bishop for black only has two defenders on the D5 square, and the translation of that means that if it were to move, that piece were to be forced to move, it's not going to have defenders anymore on possibly some other squares. So if we take this a step further, and white uses the rook on the A1 square to attack, right there, that puts black in a predicament in that black is in check, and the only piece it can defend with happens to be the bishop. So black defends with that bishop, and that exposes black's bishop to capture by white's bishop, and white ends up winning that particular exchange there. Let's go ahead and take a look at a second example here, and in this one it's white to move. If you'd like, you can go ahead and hit pause and try to see if you can figure this one out. In order to tackle this problem, what we're going to try to do is figure out what is defending what. So we're going to put down on here how many different defenders each piece has, and we'll superimpose that on the screen here. Now the tricky part is figuring out what will change to what when we make an attack on a certain piece in different scenarios as far as how our opponent might respond. One attack line for white here could simply take the bishop and capture with its bishop there, and that can be defended most likely by black's knight. Now when they do that, or white does that, this pawn now has nothing, no defenders defending it, instead of one defender, which was the bishop prior to that. So that's one option. Another option for white is white could simply take that pawn with his knight right there, as the bishop has no defender on the G7 square. The bishop has a defender where it is right now, but it has no defender on the G7 square if it were to defend that pawn. And conversely, white has this bishop that pretty much is staring down, and it is defended by the rook on B1. So let's say white goes ahead and captures there. Okay. Now black has two options, or it's actually three options. Black could capture the knight and then get captured by white, and then obviously black loses that exchange. Black could also capture the white bishop and lose that to the rook. Positionally, that is probably better for black, or black could just simply keep the bishop right there and maybe move another piece. Regardless of how this plays out, black ends up losing material. Now let's take a look at our third and final example here. Again, it's white to move. If you'd like, you can go ahead and hit pause and see if you can try to figure out how this one works. This one's a little bit complicated. What we're going to do in this one is we're going to look at how many defenders each piece has. So let's start with the queen that has one defender. There's a rook here that has two. These two pieces have each one defender. These two pieces have two defenders. These two pieces right here have 0 defenders, and the king has 2 defenders. Now, if you'll notice that the queen has a lot of work it's busy doing, and it's only going to be able to fulfill one of those obligations at a time. So that's something to take into consideration here. Now, a lot of us would like to simply, okay, take the rook, or a lot of times our first thought would be simply take the rook and attack right there. But black can meet that attack and then cover with a queen, and it basically doesn't work well. An X-ray would be better, which is what this video is about. So let's take a look at how we could do an X-ray, and that is simply to take the queen and attack that rook spot right there. Okay, now what that does is that reduces these two pieces to only be having one defender, and in that case black will also be in check, so black will have to recapture with either the rook or the queen. It's going to have to move one of those two pieces back, and that puts black in a little bit of a predicament, as white can bring pressure with the two rooks later, and we'll see how this plays out here. Okay, we've got the queen, it captures. Okay, now there's a check, and in this example black decides to recapture with the queen. Now white can take the rook, move it forward, and black is kind of in a predicament where it has to defend the king, so its best option is probably to recapture with the queen, which white can take the queen with the rook, and then white has obviously had significant material, and black is going to be forced to move one of the two pawns forward, or black could run into a checkmate. So as you can see, an X-ray can be very effective when used properly. It's somewhat complicated and takes a little bit of analysis to figure out where the position is, but if you could do that, it can be very fun to do that on your opponent and be able to find ways to win games that you might not have been able to win earlier. Conversely, when your opponent does it to you, it can be very frustrating to be on the losing end of that. So hopefully this helped you out a little bit. Thank you for watching.